First of all, congratulations to me for reaching 1,000 subscribers. Man, it took way too long, probably at least 3 years before that algorithm kicked in. I finally found you guys that like what I'm doing. I'm probably gonna do a dedicated 1,000 subscriber video, maybe like a Q&A kind of thing. Let me know if that's something you want to see, and then I'll make like a form where you can submit questions. And for people that have been wondering where I've been and stuff like that, you never need to worry, because I'm always working and I'm always planning something else. This video you're seeing now, I probably thought about 3 or 4 months ago, but it's literally just me alone executing everything that I do, so it does take a while. So today marks a new series that I want to do monthly. I don't want to do it more frequently than every month, because I still want to be able to put out weekly tutorials for you guys. But within this series, we're going to be breaking down tracks and songs that I think are amazing. So some of them you may have heard, some of them you might not have, and then it's your opportunity to kind of hear something new and discover like your new favorite song that you might have on repeat and stuff like that, or something that you want to make a production in a similar style to. I purposefully grouped these songs randomly. The reason is, this way you're gonna stumble across something that you would have never thought to look for yourself if you usually listen to one particular style of music. The music I listen to is very eclectic, like there's so many genres, but there's probably a thread between them all in that they're really unique, innovative, or there's something about it that speaks to me personally based on how I grew up, things I experienced, and I guess just what's within me, you know, my soul. So all in all, get ready, because these tracks are flipping crazy, and this whole series is basically about getting to know me through the music that we both love. I'm going to be listening to them with you in real time. There's going to be anecdotes and stuff and stories, so you get to know me better, but you're going to learn a lot kind of about how this music was made. You're going to be inspired to do the same thing yourself, and you're going to get to add a whole bunch of songs to your library. Now, I'm smiling when I announce this track, because this track is so important to me. When this track came out, I was on iTunes buying a whole lot of tracks because I was going on holiday and I wanted some new vibes to listen to. And so at this time, I was so bored of everything I was hearing. Like, I didn't even want to make music. But this song revitalized my creativity at the time once I heard it. So this song actually ended up becoming the soundtrack of my summer 2016, where I went on holiday. Long story short, I met this French girl, and for the next 4 years, I'd be studying French. But the point is, there's memories linked to this track, which I think is kind of amazing. Now, that intro is so important because it kind of tells you exactly how the track is going to be. Like, there is so many different kinds of sounds and styles and genres blended into this track. You've got R&B, you've got pop, you've got dance music, you've got new jack swing from the 90s. And I'm a 90s baby myself, so I can remember being like, I don't know, 5 or whatever, and hearing these new jack swing sounds with like Teddy Riley, Michael Jackson, Boyz II Men and stuff like that. So it has a deep history for me. This track uses so many samples that you can tell from the intro how they've flipped the samples and added effects on them. But it's not until I've heard the track like 200 times did I realize what samples they're using at the beginning. It's bits of Zayn's voice, kind of dropped octaves and raised up octaves and stuff like that with distortion. It still has that crazy R&B chord progression underneath that you're gonna hear throughout the whole track. So it's kind of like almost, I don't know, like the perfect intro, like you're pulling back the curtains and something crazy is about to happen. Boy can sing. Yeah. That random girl screaming in the back, like stuff like that really opened up my ear to say, there's no rules to this. Like, we should be making whatever we want and using a really wide range of sounds and stuff like that. You know, don't limit yourself. Before I went on holiday, I didn't really think of like the lyrics of this song as like anything particular. It didn't really relate to me. But then, like I said, there was this whole summer romance kind of thing. Now all the lyrics had like this crazy meaning, and it was weird, bro. I don't know if you guys have ever had one of those experiences where like a song becomes the soundtrack to a certain part of your life, but it's crazy. It's crazy. I remember Snakehips did a Ask Me Anything on Reddit, and they were kind of like answering all these questions. And then they said how they moved from Logic to Ableton, and it was the best move they ever made. Like, and they thought to themselves, like, why didn't they make that move quicker? It wasn't until like, obviously nowadays, like, I'm using Ableton, that I realized what they meant. And it's kind of like the way they make the music and the style of music they make, that's so heavily based on sampling and flipping samples and less so on recording like audio with microphones. I don't think any other DAW does it quicker than Ableton Live. It's kind of like Ableton Live is built for the electronic musician. When I got back from the holiday and whatever, I made a track called Venus. You can check it out on Spotify. That's the first kind of track I've made in Ableton, I think. And that title track is a reference to one of the lyrics. He says, Venus in Converse, you put a spell on me. Venus in Converse, you put a spell on me. And yes, that girl in summer, she was wearing Converse. It's weird, bro. It's weird how I was wearing Converse too. It's weird how the things just lined up. So when that pre-chorus dropped for the first time, I got goosebumps like crazy because I didn't expect it. To be honest, if you said there's a pre-chorus coming, can you guess what it can be? I would have never guessed it's like this crowd singing this melody, like, because imagine when that goes off in the club, everyone's just feeling good and everyone's singing that melody. And I actually saw Snakehips later that year for my birthday. The energy in that place was crazy. The mix of people was just like every race and subculture just all in one building, and the energy was fire, man. Help you take your dress off. I've been by myself, remembering you, your body. That vocal sample that they used, the melodic one, just that choice of sample that's all distorted and like, so you've got this aspect of it being human, thinking you're going to relate to it because there's another human making noise, but then you can't understand a word they're saying, so it's got this very abstract feel to it. That is the kind of thing that's going to help you get into your own bag and think, yo, like what crazy things can I make the person feel when they're listening to this? That sound when the outro breaks in, that digital signature Snakehips sound, I love that sound so much and I don't know why. Ugh. The whole vibe of this song is like bittersweet, kind of melancholy vibes, which I love. And then he's kind of ending this story, kind of like, you know, I'm telling you, man, it's big about memories. To when I was on holiday, it's crazy. The last sound you hear is that crowd with the sidechain. I think that's so sick. You hear synths with sidechains, melodic things, but just the sample being sidechained. That's what I'm saying. If you're used to thinking one way, it's going to be difficult to think outside the box like that. Yeah, we bring the stars out, we bring the women and the now, the first time I heard this track, I was in college, and literally my music technology teacher was like, yo, have you heard that track on radio that's just come out? And I'm like, what track? We searched it on YouTube and I found it, and I was like, what is this? Like, Labyrinth it's the first time I heard of this guy as well. It's the first time I heard something that I never knew I always wanted to make. It's like he came inside my head, deep subconscious, and pulled out this track that I've always wanted to make and I've never known. And then bam, I heard it. I was like, this is exactly what I should be making. Like, this is 100% me. This is crazy. And ever since then, if it's on the internet and it's produced by Labyrinth, I've heard it like 10 times. Everything. If it's on the internet, I found it. Doesn't matter if it was one radio rip that eventually got deleted. He did an exclusive remix for Reebok that you probably can't even find right now. I've heard that. And probably every interview, video or written article I've read or watched by him. So ever since I heard this track, it was all about me finding out who is this guy, what does he know that I don't, and how is he making this kind of music. And the fact that he had that impact on me is just a testament to his genius. Like I've always said, he's one of the most creative people I've ever heard. To be plucking ideas out of thin air like that, I feel like his ideas will always be better than the majority of people. Throwback. This was released in 2010, I think, and so from this stage, this is what really got me into blending musical genres together. Little did I know that would lead me to really finding like my own sound, because I was just thinking, what can I put together that would be amazing, but that means something to me? So in a way, like, he's been my biggest music mentor out of everybody. I actually saw Labyrinth live 2 weeks in a row for free. But I was too afraid to go up and talk to him. Like, people were waiting to take pictures and stuff. And some random dude just bopped in like, oh, hey, hi, how you doing? Can I take a picture? Asshole. Like, people weren't waiting already. The point is, if you get to see your heroes like that, don't be afraid like I was, like, go up to them. There was too much weight on what he has done for me musically that it felt, I don't know, man, I would have just fanboyed all over him. It would have been wild. Yeah, I'm in charge now. I'm a star and I bought my fucking car style. And this track also showed me that something that's a little bit quirky can actually be taken seriously and you can get success from it. Labyrinth and Tiny said that they were just kind of making something that they liked and was vibing and getting the energy in the studio, and then that kind of translated to people. So you never know when you release something, the impact that it's gonna have. She was meant to last me 24 hours, right? There's not even a lot of sounds in this track, bro. It's so... Yeah, they say
say hello.
One thing I would say about this track is there's not a lot going on like layer wise, but it's like Labyrinth, he makes every idea count. He would never put something down and keep it and then try and like make something else to compensate for it. If he's not feeling it, he probably won't keep it in there, and the majority of his ideas are like always based around feeling. And like I always say, he goes to this place where creativity and imagination lives. He goes there, he takes some resources, and then he comes back to earth and then creates this art. And it's kind of like all creators have access to this place, but he seems to get there very easily and get back very easily. Not every day can I make something where it's like super amazing, but I don't know, maybe it's a spiritual thing or a soul kind of thing, but he can get there and bring back the most sickest ideas.
I'm very famous, I'm super known, and if your son doesn't, I bet your daughter knows.
So Labyrinth is obviously, he's just shy of being a 90s baby. I think he's like my brother's age, so like 80 something. But you have all of these Super Nintendo sounds going on, which he loved to use in all of his music, mixed with the hip hop, mixed with the jungle / drum and bass. The fusion is just, it was so fresh at the time. So I just drugged my memory, and I remember like reading the interview on Sound on Sound, and he was kind of like, that first synth that you hear is like Logic's ES2 plugin or something like that. So stock Logic. And you have to think, it's not even the most exciting sound. It's not like a serum with mad warping and modulation. It's just some basic synth with delay, but it sounds sci-fi and it sounds sick. And you know, that intro is so iconic. Like at the time I was a teenager, so like in certain house parties and stuff like that, if it played, that drum and bass jungle snare roll thing, it's like, it's lit. Just gets you excited, man. Like that's the mark of a good intro, when you can grab people's attention straight away. And every time you hear the track after that time, you know exactly what it is, because it has that sonic identity at the beginning. Reggae guitars, just why not? High energy, there's so much swagger and like confidence with the track and the rapping, the delivery, but it's so playful with that video game synth, just like it's not taking itself too seriously. There's a lot going on there, and I think it's a great track. Moving on. My whole relationship with Daft Punk is just being a kid and seeing these animated music videos on MTV. No one really had those records in my house and stuff like that. So that was the kind of way I absorbed genres that were outside of like my family, which was like hip hop, R&B, dancehall, old soul music and stuff like that. And so a great memory of this song for me was I was either in detention or one of my school subjects, and I just started singing the lyrics to the song. Like I didn't even have it playing, and my best friend, who is a Vietnamese kid who moved to Australia now, he just started singing it back to me. I was like, I didn't know you know this track. And so sick, it kind of brought us together in a new way, because we're both liking this kind of alternative music that no one else really listens to around us. It's funny, he would eventually try to get me into anime and stuff like that, and at the time I was like, no, this is for nerds. But I would eventually start loving it and watching a whole bunch of anime. To this day I still watch Boruto, so that goes to show he knew me very well. Another interesting fact is I used to be a dancer, so we'd be dancing to anything from like piano arrangements of Final Fantasy, the video game music, to Busta Rhymes, to stuff like Daft Punk. That groove. That intro, let's talk about that intro. First thing you're thinking of is like these robots or this machine that just doesn't work properly. Like, why does it keep restarting? It's funny I think of it that way, instead of saying, oh no, it's just the sample being hit again and again, repeated. It's like, no, it has this other imagery to go with it that is outside of what is actually happening. French house, baby. It's very musical, like organically musical, but then it's very inorganic at the same time. And you have to think, for me, this is the first time I'm hearing like disco-y, funk, soul melodies and grooves, because I didn't really listen to that, but I'm hearing it through it being sampled. And that's the power of sampling. Like you get taken to all of these places that happened before you were born and stuff like that. So pretty awesome what you can take in through other people sampling other people. I don't think Daft Punk was using like a DAW back in them times. They would have had like a whole bunch of keyboards, samplers and sequences. It's not really like, oh, I'm clicking it on the grid. It's kind of like, what are we vibing to and what are we hearing that needs to go into the sampler? So it's got this live element despite it being electronic. I think because the guitar and bass and stuff are being sampled, it's kind of like, if you were a band, who would think to play that riff on like the last part of the bar? It doesn't even make sense. Like it sounds like the ending of a loop. You wouldn't think, oh, I've just come up with this ending thing. I just like, my main riff is the end of something. Like normally your riffs are the core or something, or the beginning of something, but that's wild. A pretty cool thing that you can hear in this track is the use of the same materials, but you're building themes. So now they've just kind of made the words happen twice as fast, if that makes sense. It was like one word or whatever, now it's like all 4 in a row, then we break. I love the chopped rhythm. I think that's kind of a skill to show how good you are. Can you develop what you already have and keep people's interest? It's very easy to keep interest when you add new things, but can you do it with things that you've already done or things you've already said? This is the best part of the whole track, obviously. We need to talk about that. The way they resampled that guitar thing, I don't know what chord it is, but it's playing a very weird chord in that place, and that part always stood out to me. I could sing back the whole track or remake the whole track without having to hear it because of these things that happen at certain points that are so distinctive. That's an awesome track if you're able to do that. The chops. Yeah, this jogged back to memory. So at some point, I think I got out the MP3 player and me and my friends were sharing an earbud each. And we were just literally singing it all and dancing along, like literally copying all the scratches and the jumps and the chopped rhythms. Good times. Skrillex the GOAT, what more can we say? I've always been a fan of Hikaru from these Kingdom Hearts theme songs. That sound, that emo vibe is amazing. When I hit my 20s, that's when I started to listen to a lot of the soundtracks and stuff like that. I started diving into things that I used to hear but never really paid too much attention to. From that, it kind of opened my ears to a whole bunch of sounds. Another random one that will pop up in another video is the theme song for Smallville. So that's something that I just heard on TV around the house, like my dad would be watching the show or something. That intro always stood out to me. Really heavy rock, really emotional and emo, so I love it. What a groove as well, like. The way he chopped that rhythm he chose to chop. So yeah, man, we all know, like, the main sound you're thinking of is that flipping ridiculous vocoder sidechain thing that he done. It's mad. It reminds me of how Timbaland would flip sounds, not necessarily using the same technology because Timbaland's much older, but Timbaland always had the idea that sounds should be flipped and we should come up with something that sounds crazy. Not every producer thinks like that, to be honest. But what I really like the most is the sound design really enhances the emotion of the music and the lyrics. It's not just sound design for the sake of sound design. And I think that drop is so divisive and has this crazy shock factor to where you're either gonna get super excited by it or you're gonna be like, oh, what is this noise? This is weird. And that's what you want. You want to depart the Red Sea like Moses. Like, you want to just make sure that all the people that like you are on the side and all the people that don't can just stay over there, bro. I think the songwriting and the melodics and the chord progression fits an RPG game perfectly. I don't know what it is. It's like, we all know the kind of vibe RPG games need to have. I think a big reason that main synth vocoder sound works is because he's taking her voice and flipping that instead of just kind of introducing a new synth. So it's like, I don't know, she's dropped into this weird, crazy sound. And for me, sounds like this is like the equivalent of the CGI you see in the latest movies. So I'm all for it and I want to hear more of it. Like I said before, I loved Sanctuary and Simple and Clean by this artist, and I would get goosebumps whenever Simple and Clean came on this advert for like this Kingdom Hearts game when I was younger, and I didn't know what it was, but I was just like, this seems magical. Those soundtracks really captured the essence of Disney that is just magical and all that fantastical amazingness. Her melody is so Asian, like it's so pentatonic. And that's kind of something you're not really going to hear over most future-based tracks. You're not going to hear this super pentatonic Asian melody that's kind of rich with like, it kind of brings back, I guess, all these amazing, rich Asian songs you might hear. Like there's this famous one, this one. And that is within what she's doing. So you might not have heard that song I just showed you, but now you can see how similar it is. And the way she comes back in just for the end of that hook, just to remind you like, I'm still here, like, we're tying this all together. We're not just gonna jump into some future-based thing and there's gonna be no more vocalists. It's like, nah, we're cohesive. Piano. The synths that he used are so sick, like, because you know it's Skrillex, you know the sound design is going to be on point, but they really fit the mood and emotion of the track. He's very good at that. If someone asks him to do a project for something, he's really good at being Skrillex, but then also making sure it fits the project. I think that's amazing. I like how they kept the kind of Japanese vocal in there. I don't think anything is too weird for Skrillex, so he's all for things that sound different, taking a different approach, being different, you know. The road less traveled, thinking outside the box. You get the drift. Her scream is the best part. And that vocoder, like, I'm not sure if he added extra harmonies to it or if the effect processing he used is bringing out all these other harmonies and colors and stuff like that, but they're all in key, they all work, and they all add something to that chorus drop. Again, it just reminds me of like Timberland rhythmically. Like, if Timberland was younger and had software earlier, this is kind of what he'd be doing, to be fair with you. Future house, probably my favorite house style along with bass house. When I heard this guy, I was like, oh, this is house, but this is something else. I was like, this guy listens to R&B. And so Chammy's easily my favorite house producer. It's rare that I even like the majority of tracks on one person's album, but his album Year Zero, I like the majority of tracks on there, and they're all house, but they're all different. Garage. Come on, man. And if you couldn't already tell, I am from London, so that UK garage drop is ridiculous. It's so sick. I also love how he sampled old school R&B and funk with that damn talk box. Like a month ago when I re-listened to this track, I quickly done like a whole bunch of research on like the talk box and stuff like that, because the sound is so distinctive. There's another famous talkbox musician that's played on like, what's that Bruno Mars track? I just want to take you higher, throw your hands up in the sky. The guy that wrote the original sample within this track, he done the talkbox melody for Tupac's California Love. And so I was listening to like live versions and different renditions of that track, and I was like, man, it's so distinctive, such a distinctive sound. The bass. And it's funny because the part of the track that he sampled is like one little bridge section. The majority of the track doesn't sound like that. And I think that's probably a big reason why it stood out to him when he heard the original. He's like, yo, I want this section. Love the lyrics too, man. Like, I don't care what the people say. I'm gonna love you anyway. Like, of course, we don't listen to people. Rebels. That is mad. So in Ableton or whatever software, if you can get your sample, put it in slice mode, chop it into nice little pieces, then you can play around with kind of getting this groove of these chops, but it's very easy to make it sound trash. So you have to have a good sense of like taste and groove and what's going to sound good when you chop it like that, rhythmically and melodically, because he's singing different notes at different parts. You have to choose the right ones. You can't just choose any, but it's cool because you take that, you get a whole new instrument and you can kind of really make that sample your own. Instead of people that just drag and drop the sample, keep it as an audio file and just run it through in the arrangement. Yeah, no one's got time for that. Jeez. Don't be afraid to kind of soften up and flex the DAW so it sounds very groovy and musical, because it doesn't sound like it's produced on a computer. It sounds like it's just a vibe. It sounds very alive. To do that in the software, you need a lot of swing, a lot of automation. The dynamics, like the way you compress stuff as well, needs to be quite nice. It's very easy if you produce in a DAW for your end product to just sound hella inorganic and hella mechanical and almost perfect. Like, it needs to sound more real than it does perfect. There's something very British about this track. The part I connect to is going out at night to the club with my friends and stuff like that, and just the vibe in the atmosphere, and then also like before and after you're inside. So in the parts that you're outside and you got that cold midnight air just hitting you, and it's just, that is a very particular experience. Like that's why people go out so much, because you can't really replicate that any other way.
Who cares where we go? We're ready for the afterglow.
And so those nights out with your friends, experiencing music, the nightlife, the scenery, the atmosphere, this song captures that perfectly. And it's kind of like, what is the song about? It's kind of like that afterglow part where the night is almost done, or at the end of the night, but we're feeling that glow from all the amazing moments that we've had that night, you know?
Someone hold the sunlight back, 'cause we want.
And the pre-hook has this amazing double vocal melody that I'm just not over. The main melody and the harmony, but the way they split apart and have these independent lines that harmonize with each other is, I'm still not over it to this day. To me, this track has this reggae undertone, or maybe what I'm trying to say is early rhythm and blues. It might just be that she has a lot of R&B in her singing style, and obviously reggae has roots in early rhythm and blues, but it makes me feel that so much so that I've actually found a reggae version of this track, because it sounds like it could have been an original reggae track that was remixed into this drum and bass track. Lyrically, and the song outside of the production is very solid and could easily be transferred and covered in many different genres. Amazing vocal performance. It's a one of a kind track, and it was a big hit, and you know you can't really get those all the time. If every hit was this level of amazing and tight and emotional, then you wouldn't appreciate it when you had it, you know? I do like the choice of digital synths used in the mid-range. With digital synths, you get these sounds that are less realistic, but it's like these sounds are screaming that they want to be real, like Pinocchio or something like that. They wish they were as real as like an analog synth or something like that. It matches like the energy and mood of the lyrics, like you want this kind of moment to be forever, or these are the moments you cherish kind of thing. The synth matches that nicely. I didn't really think about that until I heard it just now. What amazing melody line. I love the piano melody. There we go. So a big thing for me that's contributing to the early rhythm and blues reggae thing is those ooh harmony backing vocal things. Amazing reverb on that part, but also on her voice as well. That vocal chain of the reverb and delay is really nice. And I realize it only kicks in when she says we're ready for the afterglow. Like whatever effect is on that previously is not as strong as the one that's on it for the hook, and that's what makes it stand out really nicely. It's a great call and response as well from like the male vocal or group of vocals, like the choir vibe, and her call and response, nice. There's not many lyrics for the song. It's more like a very long hook that's chopped up and reused, which is really nice. If you want make a ginger, give me the cocoa. Now to me, this melody of the chorus is something that would be in like a children's song. Forget the lyrics, forget the artist singing it, literally note for note. It's a very simple, youthful, catchy melody. Ginger, give me the cocoa. My body beat your love. That's what I get. And for me, when I hear it, I get taken back to like my most youthful and excited self, where you haven't lived life yet, so you're not jaded by all the bad things. You're just like, oh, life is amazing. All the possibilities that are about to unfold are awaiting me. Like, and so as it brings me to my youth, it brings me to that moment where I'm hearing music for the first time. And that's always the most magical. Like before you know how music is made, with all the software and the business and the politics and the music theory and the technology and the culture, all of that. It's just like, what did it mean to you when you heard it? When it hit your eardrum and there was no context behind who the artist was, you just heard it. That's the most pure music is ever gonna be. Well, that rhythm is undefeated. So if you produce and you feel like your drum programming is lacking, then you have to make more Afrobeats and hip hop music. African music is so drum heavy compared to like Western music, which was like Western classical, all these string and bass instruments and stuff like that. The orchestra had like one timpani. But making more Afrobeats and hip hop will definitely teach you how to choose percussion sounds, program things, and make sure they're actually grooving and swinging because we're using a computer. I always say this, to me, rhythm is the most important part of music. There's 12 notes on the keyboard, there's endless combinations of rhythms and stuff like that. Obviously, sound choice is king now as well if you're making electronic music. Still, rhythm is king because you're making electronic dance music, so people need to move. Get your rhythm game on point. That synth. I love that vocal synth sound. It's not even the most futuristic or modern sound. It's just really nice. It's just really nice. I'm not trying to hear Serum wavetables in this track, to be honest with you. It's not that kind of track.
Make a touch upon it. Make a rub, make a love, make a rub, make a touch upon it.
Maybe if you don't listen to a lot of Afrobeats and stuff like that, and it's your first time hearing it, just know that this goes off in the club from the first time you hear the vocals before the instrument comes in. It's just a vibe.
If you want make a ginger, give me
Definitely start listening to different cultures outside your own because you're gonna get a wider scope of what music means to people. Song is only like 2 chords. It's very much like a group of percussion players because when you have a group of people doing something, no one person can be doing too much. Otherwise, there's not going to be space for everyone to be involved. So this is a perfect example of having lots and lots and lots of percussion elements, but they're all just doing like 1 or 2 things. And that increases the depth of like the drum pattern because it's so wide in frequencies and tones and timbres because you've got wooden elements, kind of metallic elements, and skin drum elements, like drums with skin on it. You're getting all these flavors as your drum pattern. I think that's a very good tip. Make sure you rewind this and listen to that because that's the gem. When you hear a track, you shouldn't really be thinking about is it live or programs. Like that's not what drums are. The drums are percussion. As long as it's making you move and you're liking it and it's exciting and it feels like it has energy, that's all that matters.
They do like ball.
String. I love the strings at the end. There's like that kind of 1-note string melody changing and then a couple more string melodies come in, but it does uplift it as the key changes, you know? And the key change is tasteful. I didn't expect that the first time I heard it, but if it happens and you don't feel uncomfortable, then it must mean it's working, and that's a good sign. The last thing I'll say is how the harmony is kind of on the offbeats. It's not like chords are on the 1 or every 1 of each bar and stuff like that. It's just on the 4th quaver of the beat, the 4th, 8th note, which is just gives it that, makes it poke out a bit. And melodically, there's not a lot going on. Like few melodies, like 2 chords in every kind of like loop. Drums are doing the most, and of course the vocal melody. We're leaving such space for the vocalists just to do their job, man, and get people in the mood to have a good time. I'm a big Justin Timberlake fan. I'm a big Timberland fan. I'm a big JT and Timberland fan. I was so happy when this album drops because after Future Sex Love Sounds, I thought that JT had just left me forever and he wasn't coming back. He was doing movies and all this stuff. I was just like, bro, we need some of that special collaborative energy. That this is one of the best representations of musical friendship. Like the reason it sounds so good is the friendship that Justin Timberlake and Timberland have. And so during that period where there was no JT to listen to, I actually found Miguel, and he served as a very good replacement for Justin Timberlake during that time. But JT came back with this album, and the title of it captures exactly how it sounds. 2020 experience, 2020 vision. They said that they wanted to make an album where it's like music that you can actually see. That Indian percussion thing is ridiculous, bro. When you can really blend different cultures and countries together, it's like, imagine on your plate, there's this Indian dish, like a small portion of it, but you know how Indian food is so flavorful. There's so much spices and flavor and stuff like that. You put it on your tongue and it's just coming alive. That's just what that percussion thing is doing. And that's just a small part of your plate. And that's what this song is made up of. It's made up of very small portions of amazing sounding sounds. Culturally, you get taken to those places without you having to be there.
Cause I heard you tell your girlfriend I deserve better.
Now, there's no way a track with this many sounds in it should work as well as it does. There is a shit load of sounds, but it all contributes to trying to get the sounds as close to being seen with your eyes as humanly possible. There's these jungle sounds, there's these beatboxing sounds, there's these Middle Eastern sounds, there's these barbershop quartet harmony sounds, R&B sounds, this weird clavichord, something that you would have heard by the Beatles in the 60s. There's this sound in there, it's amazing. For me, this album is some of Timbaland's greatest work. Obviously, he's made music for years, but you know, the older you get, the better you get, and you kind of reach a pinnacle where it's just like you're in your bag. You've done this so many times. You've got mastery over your craft now. And this is exactly what you're hearing. Ah, the layers. Personally, this is my kind of song with my kind of lyrics. I was that guy that's just flirting with girls in the club, like literally. That's kind of my vibe. I envision I'm in the club, there's this girl over there. I'm trying to make this whole narrative about it when it's probably not even that, but that's what's happening in my mind. And so yeah, I'm a flirty motherfucker. And for me, it's kind of like, if I was in this position, this is exactly what I'll be saying. It's like, don't hold the wall. Like, you look fire. You need to be like over here. We need to get this interaction started. Like, I think those girls are the best too. The ones that just look fire, but they look like they don't want to be there, or like they look like it's not really their scene. So that means, you know, she's not really out clubbing all the time. She just looks fire, but she's kind of in this environment that she's not usually in. And I've met a couple of those. They've never worked out how I wanted. So many sounds. Another producer helped produce a track called J-Rock, who's an amazing keyboardist. And the melodies that he does are so sick. They're simple, but because they were made live when they were all jamming in the room, it's like, it's very human, the melodies, you know? And they're not the kind of melodies that you would have clicked and programmed in. It's just vibe. You can't just recreate vibe like that. Vibe is like a special magical thing that just happens in the moment. This track has such an impact on me that one day I just found myself breaking down the melodies and the harmonies, and I literally made these 4 parts on the most trashiest MIDI sound to show you how good the melodic and harmonic writing is in this. This MIDI sound is trash, but this sounds so sick the way the 4 parts are working together. One thing I would recommend you to do is listen to the instrumental version of this, and then you can really hear the layers of sound, because obviously JT's vocals pushed up so you can hear it so high that there's a lot going on that you don't realize. So check out the instrumental. Those Middle Eastern strings. There's so many interesting sounds that it always has me guessing what instrument or synth does it come from, or what processing did they use. And a lot of it I can't tell you, to be honest. A lot of them are like samples of real instruments. Some of the keyboard sounds are kind of basic, but then there's these other sounds that I probably have never ever used even after decades of making music. I just haven't clicked on it and used it in any of my tracks. So I'm kind of hearing stuff like, I've never used that before. What is that? Where can I find it? Like, what kind of sound is that? It's just quite interesting. The switch up at the end to the more upbeat dancey groove was a great throwback to Future Sex Love Sounds, that album where almost every song was like 2 songs and it switched up in the end. It's like, why not make a 7-minute track? It's like, this is not about chart music, this is about dope music that you can just listen to in your headphones, space out, zone out, get transferred to a different place and enjoy it. So I have to say, I think, can I say it? I'm just gonna say it is. This is the best intro to a track I've ever heard in my life. Ever. It's so simple, but it's so distinctive. Oh, why do those couple of beeps and the damn squelch synth and then the drum fill? It sounds so good, and I don't know why. It starts with the end of like the loop, end of the bar. It's kind of like an anti-intro because it's not the beginning of anything. It's actually the end of the loop. And then you get the first beginning of whatever's to come. But that BP synth sound is such a main character. It's weird. There's been other tracks with more interesting, detailed, crazy sounds, and they still don't seem as important as this sound. If we're talking main character, protagonist, that is what that sound is. Everyone that knows the track knows the sound. I don't understand. I don't get it. What's interesting about the song is that it never actually reaches a climax, despite being the name. It just builds up and swells and drops back down, and swells and builds up. There's this amazing piano, amazing string section recorded live actually, and yeah, it doesn't climax, just comes back down again over and over. Amazing.
We're together, now we're undone. Won't commit, so we choose to run off.
Of course, amazing vocals by Usher. One thing you should do for this one is listen to the a cappella version, not the instrumental, because when you really hear his vocal layers and his harmonies in isolation, it's mad, it's ridiculous. Some of them blend with the instrumentation in the normal version, so you don't hear it, but when you hear the a cappella, you're like, oh, he done that and that. And like, remember, Usher can sing, so it's not really like this auto-tune fest like a lot of people do.
Wanna give it, so we both gave up. Can't take it back, it's too late, reach the climax.
I felt like when this track came out, it was like if you wanted something different at the time, you go to Diplo, because Diplo was making the craziest stuff at the time. And this was kind of like my first introduction to Diplo. Remember, I'm not American, so his stuff wasn't really being played in London. And so I'm that kind of guy where if I hear the track, I'm just researching the song credits all the time. I've done that since I was small, literally taking the booklet out of the CD, looking who'd made these tracks. I'm like, oh, what? Timbaland, the Neptune's crazy. Since this track, I kind of explored everything Diplo had made and kind of got myself used to his sound, kind of incorporated stuff that he done into my own music. Like his music, his style is very hard for me to describe. It's very wide, so I can't really pinpoint it in a direction of a particular subculture or genre. It's its own blend of things. But you'll find that is a common trait in all my favorite producers, is that they sound really unique. And it's funny, when I first realized that I liked Diplo, if I didn't already know that I was quite different sounding with my music, then me liking Diplo really confirmed how different I was from like everyone else around me, because no one I knew listened to Diplo, and the stuff I was making would fit in that category of being like alternative to what everyone else is doing. But I didn't really know that until I started listening to more people that were doing innovative, kind of out of the box things.
I've fallen somehow, feet off the ground.
So in an interview with Usher, him and Diplo said that they wanted to kind of bring EDM to the strip club, and I think that is a flipping sick way to kind of like brainstorm an idea and take like a new idea. It's so sick. And you get that with this kind of slow pace. You can see the girl just moving on the pole with that kind of tempo and those filtered chords underneath. But then with the intro and that sound, you know it's EDM in terms of you're producing it with a computer and you're taking the samples that weren't made together and you're kind of mixing and matching them to create something new. That is electronic dance music to me. Diplo is definitely in my pile of favorite producers because he has that sound that is very Frankenstein. And what I mean by this is it's this patchwork of different genres and cultures and styles, like a patchwork of it. But only the really good guys can make something look really nice and make it seem like these patches actually work together. And I think a big part of that is you have to kind of understand different genres and cultures and types of people that you meet well enough for you to be able to do that in your art. If you're someone that is very isolated in terms of you only stick with a certain group of people, or all your friends are of a certain kind of whatever, then you don't have that wide range of taste and cultural knowledge for you to draw upon and use in your art. I would put myself in that category too, because I've always had a wide ranging group of friends and activities and interests that I've been in and stuff like that. I've never really said that I belong to one culture, and I wouldn't really try to fit myself in one culture because I've always felt pulled in all these different directions. But that's something I channel within my music naturally and helps give you a unique sound. So for you guys, I'd recommend kind of just expand your cultural knowledge and your taste, and that's really going to help you get a more unique sound and stand out from other people. So I never really knew who Forte was or listened to his music before he started collaborating with Skrillex. Just in this short period, he's introduced me to this new sonic palette of like electronic music. There's so many areas of music that I haven't explored, and so when I hear his stuff, I'm like, oh, wait a minute, I don't even know how to make these kind of sounds.
All these weird little samples. I can always mix it with whatever's going on that other track and make some like kind of start doing relatively rhythmically interesting interesting things.
The kind of origin of the sounds and then the processing on top of it and stuff like that, they're just things I wouldn't have naturally thought to do. And now it's cool because I can kind of think, how would I implement that into my own music? So that first plucky, harpy guitar sound, it reminds me of like video game music that I listened to as a child. And all those soundtracks are really made to kind of like enhance the visuals that you're experiencing as you play the game. I kind of really support this idea of a moving character through a fictional world. And that reggaeton drum pattern is very serious. I haven't made much reggaeton before, but the kind of triplet percussion thing in between like the kick and snare is so sick. And the samples are fat as well. Tasty levels of saturation on those drums. I really like the fusion of a dancehall influenced genre, which is reggaeton, and this drum and bass, because that speaks a lot to me personally in terms of my culture and music that I grew up listening to and the music that is around in my city, you know, drum and bass. Overall, I'm kind of glad this song isn't #1 in like all the music charts, because then I think like my mission would be complete already and I'd have nothing else to do. Not that we need like a whole bunch of people's validation for music like this, but it would be nice if millions of people agreed that this is kind of like the best music that should be listened to every day. I've never heard of this singer either. Raul Alejandro. I don't have a Spanish mouth, so it's not gonna happen. I actually like his vocals because I've heard him on some other tracks and I was managed to match that it was him. The second time I heard him or the third time I heard him, I was like, oh, I actually like this guy then. It's not just a one-off thing. Kudos to him. And I've seen live performances of when he's done this track. And at the end, he does this crazy dance routine for that up-tempo part. And I was like, okay, he's going in. He respects the energy of the track. But yeah, man, this track is nice, it's sexy. And when you translate the lyrics, it's kind of like him talking to his ex, like, it's okay if you want to come back. Like, I know that new guy, like, he ain't shit. So there's always an open door kind of vibe. But I can just imagine this song being on in a reggaeton club, any club, and then the girls are just getting crazy. So who doesn't like that? What's cool is that at points in this track, they put the main sample in halftime. That helps add variation to what that sample is doing. And I didn't notice until maybe like the 100th time that I heard the track. So it's stuff like that that are happening very smoothly and subconsciously in the background that help add variation as you go along. So you guys should try that. I mean, it's very easy to make your loop and think that it has to be the same every time. I think definitely by 2023, we've outgrown that and we're adding lots of variation. But we're doing it in a way that it doesn't compromise the track, you know, and it still sounds like everything's glued together. One thing I really like is those teasers of like the Skrillex drop that's about to come. Like throughout the track, there's these kind of chops and beeps and stuff like that. So subtle, but it kind of helps make the drop not seem random because he's teased it so many times throughout the track. And this is similar to Pass Out in the way that the ending turns into like a drum and bass kind of up-tempo vibe. So if that's happened in 3 tracks that have ending transitions, then obviously that's a big thing that I'm into, and maybe you guys can try it out for yourself. Again, like those 4 heavy distorted bass kicks, that could have been Tiny, could have been Skrillex, whatever, but it's teasing the more electronic up-tempo vibe that's about to come. This is the first time I heard of Tiny, this producer, and he's like the biggest producer of like reggaeton and stuff like that. But that just goes to show the power of collaboration, because whenever Skrillex works with these new guys, I automatically find out who they are and stuff like that. And he works with a lot of different people across so many different genres. One thing I would ask you to do for this track is play back the track half speed on YouTube and 0.75 speed, so you can really hear the drums and the tones of the drums and the rhythm of the drums in this fast section. Because what you realize is the snare is pitched. It's almost like a melodic snare, the way that it's playing a little melody at the ends of phrases. The tone of the snare keeps changing because the note keeps changing. So it's like the most varied snare that I've heard, but somehow it doesn't sound like it's changing. And the last thing I'll say about, obviously, the GOAT Skrillex is like, when you ask him to collab, he doesn't hold back because he knows why people are asking him to collab. They know that they want him to just be himself.
That's hard.
So he's chopping those vocals. He's dropping them vocals an octave and distorting it and filtering it. And he's just doing what he does best, man. And I think that's amazing when you've kind of patterned your source, your unique source that no one else really has. And almost everyone else is trying to imitate and copy and stuff like that. That's when you know you've got something special.
Yeah, you know, that's my boy Sonny, bro. Sonny, and I sampled Fortet on that track. And Raul Alejandro, you know, just did his thing. And, you know, it's just such a cool combination of people that I admire that, you know, it just sounded so amazing together. So I like the vibe that it ended up with.
That's hard.
Thank you, bro.
But that is it for this video. My goodness, this is the first time I've done a video like this. And you have no idea how long it took to record. I'm actually changing the way that I'm gonna do this video into a more concise, efficient and productive way of filming and producing and editing. And that way you're gonna get this video even better next time. It's gonna be more exciting, it's gonna be great, and I'm not gonna be as tired by the end of it. Thank you guys for the 1,000 plus subs. When this is dropping, I may have a little more than that. Now I just need you guys to help me get that watch time up, you know. Try and watch a lot of the videos that you may have missed before you sub, because I've been doing it for like 3 years. So there's a lot of gems in the old productions that I've done. And it's kind of like, I might not be making those styles again too soon because I've done so much of them. So you might not get them unless you go back and get them, if that makes sense. I didn't want to talk too much about just the production techniques because that's what we have the weekly tutorials for. You get to see me tweak that knob, add that effect and stuff like that. This was more so kind of another very important part of music production, which is the emotion, the culture, the psychology, the history, all of that stuff is gonna help you make better art at the end of the day. I have a lot planned for the future. If I told you that this was only the second type of content, then you would know that there's a third one in the works, and it's going to be much bigger scale than what this is. And that's just like a third of what I have planned for my career. Like, there's so much. I can only tiptoe on the surface of the amount of things that I want to do, I wish to do. And it's all about just creating amazing things that's just going to impact the world and inspire you guys. That's all it's about for me. That's what this channel is about. I'm not really going to say I'm a tutorial channel. I'm still an artist at the end of the day, and hopefully you guys got to chill a bit, you know, get to know me, the guy behind the damn Ableton Live. That's it from me, man. I hope you enjoyed, and I'm going to see you guys for the next episode of this one, whatever I call it. Peace.